Luisa and
Yes.
Ali Hall, we're talking about beach soccer today. Um,
Mm-hmm.
my first question to you, Luisa, is how did you start? How did you get started in beach soccer, and what inspired you to pursue beach as a sport?
Yeah. Good question. So, looking back, I actually originally started from a friend who asked me to play in Mexico, in
In Mexico?
in Mexico,
Okay.
in Ensenada, Mexico, and it was a group of guys from San Jose who I knew a little bit, and I drove down with them to Mexico. And they said they have some women's teams that will be playing, and that they can get me on one team. And and I said, sure, I'm up for the venture. And I went with them, and I played on a team that was from Huntington Beach. And they at first were unsure of, I think they had played in a few beach tournaments, and I obviously didn't, so they were unsure of me at the beginning. But I caught on to it really quickly, and I really enjoyed it. And this was 2005, maybe. It was a long time ago.
Wait,
And
was that a tournament?
it was a tournament.
Okay, side note, Luisa she has a bunch of stories that no one ever hears, and it's the first time I'm hearing of this.
I have not told you that. And actually ended up being that many of those guys actually ended up playing years ahead on the U.S. men's national team. And one of them was my boyfriend at the time. And through watching him play and like seeing it, I wanted to kind of get involved more in it. And then I contacted a tournament director in Santa Cruz that I wanted to play, and he put me on a team. And kind of the rest is history in that way. And how I became more passionate in it is by being more exposed to the game and internationally, I think.
Where was your first international?
Was in Trinidad and Tobago. Okay. And that was my first.
Well, Mexico.
Well, Mexico, yeah. Mexico was.
But like your first
But my first like experience where we built the team to go. Mexico was just for fun, and I thought, okay, let me just go. But my first real international tournament was in Trinidad and Tobago, and which was beautiful, humbling, playing against players that actually know how to play beach soccer well, and being very humbled by it in the very beginning to realize I can't get away with playing grass style against players that play beach soccer style. And in seeing that sparked my passion to get better for no reason other than I wanted to like learn the sport better. There was no opportunity that I knew of until maybe 6-7 months later, where I got the opportunity to play in Portugal for the Euros.
How did you even connect with that?
I was able to connect with that through, I put some videos on Facebook, and a Spanish coach, he was the coach of San Javier at the time, he messaged me and said, hey, are you interested in playing in this tournament in the Euros in Portugal? I had no idea what that was. And I said, yeah. He said, my team is full, but I have a really good friend who he's putting a women's team together. He's Portuguese. And he said, you're Portuguese, right? And I said, yes, I have dual nationality. So he said, okay, let me connect you to him. So I started talking to this person who at the time I had no idea the level or the capacity of who he was. And it happened to be Madger. And Madger
happened to be Madger.
And I was casually talking to him, and he said,
who is Madger?
Who is Madger?
Give a little info here.
Madger is one of the biggest legends of beach soccer. Has won numerous times best player in the world.
I saw him with a picture with Ronaldo the other day.
And yeah, he is. What the heck? Yeah, he is that legendary level.
Yeah,
and
that's cool.
To be talking with him and not knowing who he was, until I talked to some of the boys I trained with in Santa Cruz, and they said, you're talking to who? And I said, Madger. They're like, do you know who he is? And I said, no. They said, look him up. And I looked him up, and I thought, wow, I know zero about the sport, and now I'm talking to one of the best in the history of the sport. And his humbleness of meeting him and taking me under his wing is like, I still consider him a big mentor of mine. And to have him take me on in confidence to say, hey, I know you're just starting, but I really want you and part of our team. He was playing for Sporting at the time, and he really wanted a women's team. And it was probably for me still to this day one of the best experiences I've had in beach soccer.
When you went to the Euros
when I went to the Euros for the first time
with Sporting.
With Sporting.
That's the green.
That's the green and
stripes.
white stripes. Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
you can't get.
okay.
Yeah, it's very well known. And yeah, so that's kind of my like trajectory over the past, like, I don't know, it's almost like 15 years of being kind of in and out of the sport. Yeah, but I want to bring it to you.
That's
and
kind of crazy.
Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't tell you these things. And it's only like recently I've been like looking at history of like our club,
Yeah.
Cali Beach, but also just a history of like, when did I start this and how did I get on board and thinking about that. And yeah, and so that's why I'm like, yeah, I did play in Mexico. I did do that. So
that's kind of crazy.
Yeah,
huh?
yeah.
Well, that like leads me to answering
Yeah.
the same question. Is I remember watching you all in the era. Well, I didn't get to watch, but I heard afterwards, and I was in my own life, like doing my thing, like
Okay.
out of college, like playing grass, not knowing if I wanted
Yeah.
to. Got in a car accident. Then I came
all
back.
that time.
Yeah, it was
all
during
that
the car
time.
accident, and then
Okay.
after that, I was like, oh, I'm gonna go play grass again.
Yeah.
And then like Kylie and them asked me like, hey, do you want to go to Trinidad? And I really, really wanted to go to Trinidad.
I didn't know that.
I really did.
I didn't know
I
that.
know. And at the time I was working a lot, and I would have had to cancel like 8 games. And I was working at a school for like disabled kids.
Oh, I remember.
Yes.
I remember. Yeah.
And I was like a substitute there, and then I was like doing these texts like turning.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
And then I was like, oh my god, I want to so bad, but I had like literally had to get 8 games covered. And I was like, there's no way.
First I had no idea about that.
Yeah.
I knew we were trying to get players to go, and I didn't know you were one of them. That like Kylie was trying. I knew of you, and I knew like you were working and doing things. I didn't know that you were trying to really make it.
Yes, it literally.
Wow.
Like, so I went to like my first tournament was in Santa Cruz.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure it was just kind of like beers on the side, like
fun,
like blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is annoying.
Yeah.
That I couldn't kick. Like I'm pretty sure I wore sand socks. I'm like, okay, this is not gonna happen. Like no. And then yeah, I remember it was so hot in Santa Cruz.
Okay. Yeah.
But it was cool. And then like I'm driven in a way of like competitiveness. So coming right out of college, being like a year or 2 out, I was like, I don't know how to do anything without it being like next level, like being able to accomplish it at a higher level.
Okay.
So like beach, I only thought it was like recreational first.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so like after that, I was like, okay, like I played, and then you guys came back and like, oh, we're doing this.
Yeah.
Like, we just went playing this tournament. And I'm like, what the heck is this sport? And then I saw like Paxton and you and Jay went, right? You three. And I like watched like a couple things, like some highlights, and I'm like, this is weird. Like what? Heck?
What
I didn't
is
know
this?
This was a thing ever. And then Turkey came about.
Yes.
And that was like, people were like, oh, like you guys were like, let's go to Turkey.
Yeah.
And I, I'm very much like,
F it,
let's
go. Yeah.
And so I was like, okay. And like knowing it was like at a higher level, I was like very intrigued by it. So when I went there, played, I was like,
how did you, let me ask you about that, because at that time I was really injured and I took on a different role. I was a coach at that time. And I wasn't in a player mentality. So how did that feel to go to that? That was your first big international?
Yeah, it was.
So how did it feel to go to that at the level that you were at that time and all those things? How did it feel to go there? What was your thought process of like leading up to it and at the event?
No, I really don't think I had any. I didn't know what to expect. I'd never seen the sport at the highest level, or like what that looks like, what the technique looks like, what the what is beach soccer in general. Like I was going in being like, we're hard workers. Americans are always like run, work, like, blah blah. And I was like, we're gonna work as hard as we can, like fight like hell. And we played a Russian team the first time. Like
I remember
much the
that
Russian national team. I remember. In the world. We lost in PKs. We grinded
and that's a massive testament of the hard work that you guys did on the field to get to PKs against a team like that.
100%. And I think, no, but after that, like playing them though, was very difficult. Like, that was not.
What was difficult
easy
about playing them?
They knew each other. They knew the movements. They knew the spaces that they were going in. They just were a very mature-minded beach team. You could tell they played, and it made a difference in the looks of the play, the way they played, the way that they were able to keep their composure. Like honestly, we stayed in it. They were just shut down by our defensive hard work.
Exactly.
We stayed in it, you know, and like that can happen every now and then, but like at the end of the day, they did win in PKs, unfortunately. But like it was next level, and I remember just like going out the field and being like dying because like I didn't know what to hold back, how to play, like all the things, and we were just like chasing a lot. But like also, we did a great job. We did a really good job defensively. You did a great job of setting us up defensively.
Thank you. Yeah.
But yeah, after that, like I was like, this is next level. I love this.
Yeah.
And this is fun. And this is the first time I want to like really dig into something like grass soccer. I went in as a kid. We were playing, like everyone puts their kids in the grass, and like I was good at it. Got to play at a high level, played a national team, like youth national team growing up, and played Tennessee, like did all these things. And then I got burnt out. And then
so like there was a period of time where like soccer wasn't a big part of your life, and then beach kind of came in, and then the spark of playing at the World Winners in Turkey, you saw another, it brought out maybe the competitiveness that you had and maybe the passion for the sport that you had. Or
I mean, it was different. And then it, I mean, we're gonna probably get into this like way later in all this stuff, but like every player has like a role in the game. And in 11s, people get pigeonholed into different positions, and you know, it's just different. It's a beautiful game. Like I'm not taking away from that at all, but just speaking on the beach side, like I was a defender in grass
normally. In grass.
So playing in beach, I was like, I've had a great shot. I have been able to score this whole time. I have been able to do these things, and now I get to do it here and show all of the skills of my game instead of like just being in that
pigeonholed
to one spot. Exactly. So,
and by the way, I think you got, correct me if I'm wrong, but like one of the best goals of this tournament in that tournament.
The first time to Europe?
No, in Turkey.
Really?
I want to say it was a left-footed shot against the Russian team.
Oh my gosh.
We'll check that out.
We will check that out. I think it might have been Euros, but I don't know.
I feel like it was
so long ago.
It was
like,
I know,
but like it was just amazing. Like it was, and the fact that there was like this high level and players that were working for this sport. I was like, okay, I can like I can just like go for something and restart my life in something again. Because it's really hard, like transitioning from being an athlete to not, and that's a whole nother thing. But like, well, just like, you know, like you're leaving the game and you're like doing what, and at the time there wasn't NWSL and stuff. Isn't that crazy?
It was.
I'm not that old.
No, but there wasn't.
Literally had just like been starting to an extent there. So like
there wasn't a pathway to go into after you finished playing in university level.
No, there was not. At the time, it was like starting to peak, like it was starting to be like an idea, and there's like a first draft maybe my junior or senior year or something, and then and then honestly, it wasn't a big thing. Now everyone in college is like, I have something to do afterwards if that's a thing. So like after, it was kind of like, you're done. There's like a little depressive stage. Then I found beach, and I was like, oh shit, I'm stoked. And then that's what happened.
That's that.
We could talk for hours on that subject, my goodness. But the real starters of the game were freaking you, Jay. You guys just like brought it into our world, and we're like, okay, here we go. And then the women's national team was made. So
was that another spark for you?
Of course. It's like you get to play at the highest level somewhere.
Were you, because at that time, I think they only had maybe one tournament, maybe two.
Yeah, right before Turkey, they had gone. They were at the qualifier.
Qatar. Yeah, and then they only started, I want to say in May of that year, 2019.
Yeah,
they started, and so you had seen a bit of the U.S. start in two events, and then did that like kind of be another inspiration for like a passion of like continuing to grow in your game, like
there is, I mean, there's never like necessarily the end goal. You always want to be better and better, but the fact that there was a level to get to that is the highest level, and to maybe even, I mean, in this sense, in the U.S. to create that high level of beach, because we were still in the making of it. was very enticing. Very enticing, you know, like
yeah, something to work towards. And I mean, I think any athlete wants, not every athlete, but many of them, to represent the country that you are from, and it brings a whole nother level of, I don't know, it brings this
something
it's something else. It's, you can't explain it when you represent your country, and the feeling that you have gotten to that level. It's an athlete. It's what you dream about to do.
To wear your crest.
To wear your crest. Yeah, it is.
It really is.
Yeah.
How do you see the current landscape of women's beach soccer, and what are some of the biggest challenges you and other female players encounter in the sport?
Okay. I would say that, especially after this recent Euros, so it was my 7th one, and I played on 7 different teams, each year a different team.
Wow.
And I thought about it. I don't know why this year, out of all the other years, I thought about that, and I thought about my first time versus this time. And I think exponential growth has happened in the last, at least in the last 3 years, 2 to 3 years, like very high growth of players have to be training hard. They have to be, they're exposed to the game more, all of these things. So the landscape of it now is much bigger than it was when my first Euros. And seeing other teams play, and seeing like every team is pretty good quality. Like in the past, it was, you had maybe 6 or 7 that were good out of 20, and then the rest were kind of just, you know, here and there. But now I feel like that's doubled or tripled, like in size of, each team has players that are dangerous and that are good quality players. And as far as the landscape of changing in that way and seeing the growth at that tournament, I think that tournament is one of the highest level tournaments in the year. So you have international players from every country. You know, it's massive. And so the second part of that is, I think, seeing national teams getting built in the last 2 years. You know, having like Poland, Italy, Japan now.
Is Japan being built?
Yeah,
as they should.
And China too. The Brazilian coach Marcelo, he's working on getting the women's to get built. So I think seeing that has obviously shown that, you know, what women's beach soccer is growing. Like, and as far as like the, you know, the challenges that we have, I think if we look where we are, you know, we're at a university, a beautiful university in the Bay Area in San Jose, California, and
on volleyball courts.
On a beach volleyball court is where, you know, you and I have to train often in this kind of environment. And I would assume that other players, female players around the world, have their own difficulties training in whatever sand that they can have access to. And I think that's one of the challenges that we all share as women all around the world. And, you know, it's only when you talk to other female players where you're like, oh, you struggle like I do. And I thought you didn't. And they said, I thought you didn't. And when you actually talk with them, you see, you're like, oh, we're all in the same boat, all aspiring for more, especially what we're talking about is having equality in the sport, having, and you had touched on it, something to reach for and strive for. And the next thing is having, you know, a World Cup, to having a world stage to have. And I think, you know, that's kind of like the current climate that I see or have seen, you know, over years, kind of leading to our conversations. But kind of similarly, what do you think as well on your side of like where the game is currently from when you started? Maybe what have you noticed in your experiences of playing on the U.S. team, but also for your club, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, like when it comes to Euros, I've been there 4 years.
Okay.
And
same teams?
No, I've played for, well, 2 different teams.
2 different teams.
Yes.
Okay. In 4 years.
In 4 years.
Okay.
And I mean, from year to year, I mean, this year specifically was a good eye opener to me. Like looking at every field, a bike being thrown by a girl, like nothing, not people waiting around waiting for a bike to happen, but just being like flick, boom, just seeing the talent and like the people that are seeing like this sport and actually working at it it's really fun to see because I mean the men's game is incredible to watch. Of course they've been playing longer than we have and been on a stage longer than we have, so we're kind of catching up to that. But I have no doubt that women can get to a point of being just as fun to watch. I mean it's amazing. Just I mean we're breaking the mold playing a sport in general in this world, so to see us in an aerial flight doing a bicycle kick and juggling and doing those things that people love to see in general is just like is big time. So it was really, I've just seen it grow so much. And then the US team, like there's been a lot of investment with having like a new head coach that's specifically for the team, and then having, you know, a couple more camps. I can't say that I'm like super satisfied with what we're getting right now as a national team, to be honest, when it comes to tournaments and camps. But I also have to acknowledge the fact that it's grown and we are being noticed, and we're having those conversations with our president of US soccer, and they're seeing the sport and they're wanting to push it forward, and they're seeing like how it can benefit football in general. So
and you are a big part of that growth, you know, like from the beginning of when they just wanted to put, I think I was talking to Janae about this, they literally they flew to El Salvador, had an hour training. Oh, hi, nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Okay, go play in this big tournament where these other teams have played for years together, and they were just like, I barely know what's your name again, like kind of way. And so in that, seeing what you guys have done as players of the national team on the US side, and working hard with the federation and proving yourself tournament after tournament, like, hey, we are deserving of a bit more camps, some more events, and things like that. It's only a matter of time that it's going to continue, and you guys proving it. But I think that the word is proving. Us as women, we are always proving. I don't know about you. I feel like we're always having to prove our worth and our value in the sport. And granted, it's always been focused as a masculine sport, you know, with grass soccer, with beach soccer, and it's kind of embedded just naturally as women that we have to prove ourselves constantly. And in this sport, it's like we're consistently having to do that, which it's okay. But I guess my goal, my dream is to have a younger player come where they don't have to prove that, you know, the other generations have already proved for them, and they can just come and play and get what they deserve from the beginning, and fight to be on a national team and not worry about I have to fight to make that. Like, we need to build the national team, and fighting for the federation to even make that happen for them, instead of, hey, it's already here, now you just have to work to get here. I think that's what I dream to have for the future generations coming.
No, I agree. I think that it's not only the things that the women face, but the sport faces in general, is that we need eyes on the sport. It's it's a great sport. Like, people see soccer, like beach soccer, as like soccer on the sand, like a fun little tournament because you're playing in the sand, blah blah blah. But every time someone's like, oh, I played like sand soccer, I'm like, okay, but have you like watched a professional beach soccer game? Like, have you seen this? And they're like, no. I'm like, go watch like Portugal versus Brazil, or Brazil versus Spain, whatever men, you know, or women, and go watch and see what the sport is all about. Because at the end of the day, like every sport can be very special. Like, the grass game is special, and is what has started the game of soccer. Now playing on the sand, I mean, like we watched in that one, like Juan Cus, I think it was Juan Cusa was talking about about how it started 11v11 on the sand first.
It blew my mind. It blew my mind too. I'm like, I can't even envision a field that big to play on the sand, a whole beach.
And I thought that was the coolest thing. But like, now I just think it is like the people who are watching it is to the eye of everyone that loves football. Like, there's bicycle kicks, there's aerial play, there's lots of goals, there's hard work, like like the fitness and like that some of these players have is insane. Like, it doesn't have to be like something off of grass soccer. It can just be its own entity, as it should be.
I agree. And I feel like that's what you just said is like the key of what the sport is thriving to be. It's like, not the little sister of grass soccer. It's its own entity, its own thing, and it's striving to do that. And I think it is, if we talk about beach soccer 10 years ago, I mean, it wasn't even like at all its own entity, and now it's in the like foundation stages of, and it's going fast and fast because it has done all this like work in the back end to now, and like the women getting involved, and I think the women getting involved is exponentially growing the sport. For the men, it is helping the men's side as much as it is us helping our own side of it, and to become its own entity where hey, beach soccer is beach soccer. It's not a modality of grass soccer. No, it is beach soccer.
Like, my dream for it would be that it is an actual pathway of sport. So, I mean, you know, kids are playing, and I mean, there's so many people playing in the game now. Like, if you don't make it, doesn't have to be like, if you don't make this, you do this, or I want it to be like,
an
I'm
option.
choosing to do this because you're
is
freaking
like,
good at these skills, and this is like, there are great players with great touches who aren't great at 11s, and there's great players at 11s that aren't going to be great at beach. And that is something that shows you right there that like it's its own thing. That
it is absolutely its own thing. Absolutely. And I think us of players growing up as grass players, going into the sand and being very humbled by it and saying, wow, I can kick a pass on a grass field 20 yards, no problem. And then I get stuck in the sand and fall and can barely kick a pass. I'm like, wow, it's a whole nother technical aspect to learn in the game on the sand that is very different than anything that has to do with grass. And I think leading into that, you know, it's very inspiring that you really want to work in the youth side and build the youth side. And I think when I think of the growth of the game and being its own identity is the youth side, and having them have the same, not exactly the same idea as grass, because grass is its own entity, but having a pathway for beach players, youth beach players playing, having leagues, having youth national teams, and building towards the national team for beach soccer. Having that would be the ideal goal for players, that they love beach soccer as youth and they only want to play beach soccer as youth. And I think in this country this can happen, and I think in many different countries it already is that way, that they find that beach is their path and they want to only play beach.
But there needs to be more investment.
But there needs to be,
because if it was his own thing, there's so many consumers in this world, there's millions and millions. Like, I don't even want to get into the sociological side and the financials, but there's so many people in this freaking world. Like, if you were to put it out, and like, I mean, there's a craze on women's soccer right now, which is amazing. That's because of media. Why do you believe a women's beach soccer World Cup is necessary, and how?
What does necessary mean?
Like, why is it necessary to have?
Like needed?
Yes, needed. And how would a women's World Cup impact growth and recognition of the sport?
Recognition by whom?
Everyone. So I mean, I can start that. Why do you believe a women's beach soccer World Cup is necessary? I believe it's necessary because, well, first of all, the time is now. People are watching women's sports. We have the NWSL. We have the league overseas, like the first division. All these players, like, and we're noticing women in football. And this is the time to push forward a women's World Cup for beach. They just have a futsal one now. It's time and it's necessary to have one for us. And if we have that, and honestly, like, I'm thinking long term, once we have a women's World Cup, then we'll be noticed to be in the Olympics as a sport. And that will just push me into the next question, is that if we are able to have a women's World Cup, like, the sport will be recognized, because then we'll have men's and women's, and we can go and play at the highest level on the highest stage, and people will be able to see the sport for what it is. We just need support behind it. And the time is now. Like, right now is the time to push the Women's World Cup for beach soccer. And honestly, in my heart of hearts, I believe that the U.S. needs to host a tournament here. We have one of the biggest countries in the world. And I believe if we can get eyes and recognition in the U.S., that we can really get this sport seen and pushed forward. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I do think now is a really good time in the sense of that a lot of attention's already on women's sports and women's equality and salaries on national levels to be similar to the men, all these things. So there's already that buildup of attention that has been done, and to now put in that people may not even know of the sport, to put in, hey, there's a need for the Women's World Cup. For example, yesterday I said, you know what, I'm going to wear my shirt at one of the biggest companies in the world. I'm just going to wear this shirt.
Mm-hmm.
And I was at Apple at the headquarters yesterday, and I see like them looking at the shirt and like reading. And I said, yeah, what do you think? They're like, of course, you don't have it? And I said, no. And everywhere I went on campus, the conversation was there of why. It was always why.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have an answer. I said, they've had men's for a long time, and they, we're working and trying to fight towards having this. They're like, why do you need to do that? And the questions were always why. And it was really eye-opening yesterday for me to be at, this huge empire of a company, and to have, people working in this company not even know what the sport is, like, mind boggled why we didn't have a World Cup. And I think that says a whole lot, is that needs to change. Like, that 100% needs to change. And the identity of what we spoke about the sport being its own identity is so important, so that people, when they talk about soccer, but they also talk about beach soccer, and like that beach soccer
Mm-hmm.
is its own identity. And having the World Cup right now and pushing for it to happen is really important at this crucial time of these why questions to be answered, and like just to be like, yes, the women have a World Cup. Like, it's not even a question. It's like, we have it. And I think the recognition behind that from not only FIFA but all the federations of the world, to recognize that this is necessary and needed and should have been had a long time ago, is something that it needs to be proven. And the only way that we can prove it is when you build it, it will come. National teams will the federations will start putting more investment towards having national teams if there is a World Cup to go into. If there is no World Cup, a lot of these national teams are like, it's not an investable kind of sport. But when there is the World Cup on a world stage, many of the national teams that maybe have had periods of times where they did play beach soccer now will reinvest in it and say, hey, I want our women's team to play in the World Cup.
Yep.
And that will kind of re-incentivize these federations to invest in and recognize that the sport has the highest level event for them to be placed, to invest their teams to play into that. So I think, the time is now. There's a lot of attention already, like you said, and I am in full agreement with you. It is necessary.
Yeah. And I think that this is the first, like, one of the first times that it's been brought to light, like, really, like, in a hard voice of, like, there's just like a bunch of women that are finally like, no, like, it's time, because we're working so hard.
Yeah.
And we're going to these tournaments. We are self-funding ourselves.
Yeah.
We are literally investing in the sport with our own salaries. Like, my salary goes into my beach places.
Yeah.
Like, I can put food on my table, but I put whatever food on my table so I can go to
to go to the sport.
Go traveling, go like help invest in the sport. So it's like, we need sponsors.
Yes.
The women need sponsors. The women need support.
Investors
individually, at club teams, all the things, so that we can do these things and continue to, like, we're working hard.
Yes.
And we are representing our countries in different ways. So the fact that we're putting we put our bodies through things, like like the way that someone does something in their job and they have to, sacrifice certain things in their life. We're doing the same thing. The last time I've been on a real vacation on my own, like, I actually just took one for the first time in like 7 years, last month. And it's only been for beach,
right?
For playing beach,
and you yourself investing, working, and this is kind of going back on what we all struggle with, and all the women players all over the world struggle of maintaining a full-time job to fund their passion for the game and to travel and to fund that. And that's what is coinciding all the time. And that's our biggest struggle. You know, I think one big thing I want to mention, you know, at the Euros tournament is I am so grateful for three parts. One, beach soccer worldwide recognizing that this is needed and necessary, and that they have a big influence on making this happen. And for João to take time out of a big tournament to set up that meeting. Thank you so much. I was very inspired by, I was taking it in and kind of looking around the room and seeing all these beautiful women players, really inspired by him taking the time to do that in a big tournament, and all these women saying, you know what, it's important, all the things that we have to do as athletes to prepare for the tournament and the games each day, but taking that time to be there, and him to talk with us and giving us ideas. And I also want to thank Raquel for backing the women's side and continuing to want to give us a platform and light on this. And I also want to thank you, Ali. I think you're very passionate in whatever you put your mind into, and for building relationships with players from around the world, and giving all of us kind of a network to communicate and discuss ideas and share thoughts on what is necessary for us to build this World Cup to happen. I think, you know, these three, like, you guys are really pioneers in making this happen. And it's without these three ideas and three people, I think it wouldn't even be a thought. And like you said, it wouldn't be until somebody puts it out there. And I think now everyone is like, let's do it together. And it can't just be three, it has to be everyone. And I think everyone is, especially after at that tournament, and what I felt like in that room, and just scanning the room, and said, you know, everyone's nodding their head and respectfully saying, we want this, we want this. And there were men and women in that room. There wasn't just fully women. And so, you know, I think the men also want this for us. And that is something that's very uniting and very beautiful, you know, to have seen that. And
it's really cool.
It is really cool. And to have these shirts, and all the women from all over the world having these shirts now, really shows a big point of, it makes me really happy. It makes me like feel very heartfelt and warm to know, like, this is way big. It's way big. And for it to come to fruition is one of the most beautiful things to have, to be able to see, and to like to obtain, you know. So
it's time.
It is time.
It's time. Can you share some of your proudest moments or achievements in beach soccer? What has been your most memorable match or tournament?
Ooh. Okay. Proudest beach soccer moment. And probably most memorable tournament, what I would say, it was when I got to play on the national team, when we built the first time, the first one. It was the Euro League.
It was Portugal?
It was Portugal. And I, you know, your first call up is your first call up. Like, there's nothing like to know that, and to see that, and to feel that. And, you know, to make my family really proud, I think my heart, I'll always know that feeling, and that feeling will always be with me forever. And my family, I was just there and saw them in the islands in Portugal. I was, you know, just talking with them, and they're just so proud, you know. And it's a gift that will always be, you know, with me forever. And I think singing the national anthem for the first time,
and y'all sing it with pride, man.
You've heard it, yeah.
Oh yeah.
And my mom, she was like, we need to practice it before you go. And I said, okay. So I was practicing and practicing. And then when I arrived, I was speaking with Madra. He's like, "You're gonna sing it loud," and I said, "Yeah." He's like, "You know the meaning of everything," and I said, "Yes." And so my roommate at the time, we were playing it all the time, and she's like, "Sing it, sing it." And then the night before our first match, I'll never forget. We were, at the dining eating, and Madra's like, "Luisa, stand up," and I said, "Ah," and he said, "Stand up." He's like, "Sing," and I said, "No, no." I got really shy and really insecure,
I could imagine.
And I stood up, and everyone's looking at me, and granted, this is the first national team like that Portugal had and got put together, and I'm standing up, and I see everyone smiling. I feel myself like red and hot, and I said, but national songs are meant to be together. And then some of the girls started singing and started it, and then we all sang it together in the dining together. All the federation guys, the coaches, we all sang it together passionately and loud.
Oh,
it was so beautiful. And then when we walked out into the stadium the first time and all lined up together and all arms around each other, and as soon as the music started, I just look and I see tears from like my teammates, and the passion of like all the words, and like it just was so strong, and like it comes from the soul to sing that and to look up and see, like, we were at home in Portugal in that first tournament, and it was beautiful. It was like nothing I could ever like fully put into words, but it's all in my feelings that I have, and I think will live on for me forever.
Jeez Louise.
Yeah.
That I honestly can't top that.
You can.
No,
you can.
I literally cannot. I can just say
you can.
I mean, I like.
So think about like your, like your career in beach, and like one of the moments where you can look back and be very proud.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple moments.
Okay. Yeah.
I think that just being recognized for your efforts and working hard.
Yeah.
Is always something that sticks, but I also like is uncomfortable. So I mean, I got like player of the year twice in a row, which was amazing.
Yeah.
And I was very honored to have that.
That's massive.
It is massive, and it was the first that's ever like. There's the first time they ever awarded like something to someone in the beach world. I'm pretty sure.
Oh,
like,
that's
awesome!
The first time oh my god, I didn't know that.
And
that's
that was
awesome.
Like the first ever.
Yeah.
So it's like kind of like historical.
It is, like, and something you can always have. Yeah.
But like those things really are very uncomfortable for me. And
in what way? I mean you work really hard.
I don't know. I just feel like, I mean, I feel like I have so much more to give to, not to say like it wasn't deserving or anything like that, but I just think, like those things, it's just, it's so outward that like, it's uncomfortable that it's in public space. And
totally.
I'm just like,
totally. And that goes to show the person who you are, of like the humility you have, and the humbleness that you have in your hard work. Being recognized feels good, but also the spotlight of it's nice, but it's uncomfortable.
It is uncomfortable, yes.
Yeah, but like it also shows, and I think and what makes you feel uncomfortable is that so many others made that happen for you, and like only you having the recognition is kind of a lot, because your teammates and everyone that you work hard with without the spotlight are also in that mold of recognition,
absolutely.
kind of way.
And one of the little moments that just popped up in my head that like really is, and this is, I don't know, it's like in my career and whatnot, but it was just, it's having players that I have helped bring into the mold too.
Yes.
Like kind of like thank me for giving them the opportunity of like another chance, and like showing them that we can be bigger.
Yes.
And what I mean? There's something so pure in that.
Yeah.
And so when Hannah, when she won the first female player of the year, that was like a really happy. She won the third year.
Okay.
And
yeah.
And she you know, I was so proud of her because she came in and she gave everything.
Yeah.
She was amazing. She 100% so deserved. And just like, we built such a great friendship, and just her coming being like, I wouldn't have been able to do without you.
Yeah.
Just,
it's almost,
that's
it's
better
than
else.
anything.
Like,
I
watching
agree,
people
Allie.
pursuing this, because
I agree. I feel like the longer I've played, the more that I can give others what I've learned. Yeah. Every time I see someone that, you know, like I've helped in some way, either connected them to a tournament for them to play in or anything, it fills my heart so much. I'm like, I feel so good when they get opportunities, and then I see them continuing to grow. I'm like, oh, like, it's you so do cool. You, like, yes, whatever I can do to help the game, I want, like, and everything
that it's easier.
Yes.
Like, for instance, we have a player, one of the first college players to now be playing, Marissa.
Yeah.
Like, first college player is playing D1, still in college, playing at the highest level from the US.
Yes.
Like, the fact that we have paved the path for her to be playing it, like, high level here, and then have the opportunity to go play on a European team at the highest level.
Yep.
Like, first player.
Yeah.
Like, without it being so hard.
Yeah.
For us, like, at the beginning, it was like, oh, what team?
So like, hard. Like, no one knows how to get there. And then having,
that's like a pathway. It is so much easier. It's like, hey, we found a team for you. Like, we trust it, like, whatever. And now we gave, it's like we're giving these opportunities. And it's so cool that it's so much easier now.
Yeah. And I feel like, and, you know, right now, I was recently saying, you know, that the Women's World Cup in '99 for grass soccer, those women had to work so hard for everything. And now they are, you know, founders of, you know, national NWSL teams, and they're seeing all these things that they work so hard to do, and now the pathway is much simpler for the next generation.
Exactly.
And I feel the same with beach. It's like that's why the necessity of having this World Cup is we're fighting so hard for this to happen, and then we'll be looking back and going, wow, look at the future of it, and their pathway. They don't have to struggle. They can focus on, the level is going to be even more higher, because they don't have to do all these side things that we have to do in order to make the sport recognized, like, which is what our passion is to do, to make that happen. But we ideally want to look back and being like, seeing a player like that, like, doesn't have to work so hard, knows, like, I can work really hard in the tools of the game, but not on these other things that we have to fight for that are, you know.
And that's like, it's so interesting in the last, I don't know, year or so, like, my mindset has shifted. Like, I still want to be the best player I can be, and I want to, like, get to those levels where I'm like an outstanding player in beach, because there's so many amazing players, and I have, like, we have ways to go to get there, and that's and that's part of the grind. But my mindset is kind of shifted in this way of, like, my motivation comes in, like, if I can be the best,
so can you.
So now like, we can have the best in the US or whatever. Now this is giving opportunities for pathways for the people to follow. For the players to follow. It hasn't just become about me. It's become about the aftermath.
Exactly.
Like, my motivation, like, I think I've had to, you know, there's certain times in life where your motivation just shifts, and it's not all about you. It's now become about something else, and that honestly makes me want to be even better,
even more,
because I'm doing it for the future generations. Like, how, if we don't set the standard, where do they go?
Right.
I don't want them to just come and be the best. I want to be the best and be like, I gotta be there. You know
exactly.
What I mean? Like,
exactly.
And we're starting that. So I think it's
being pioneers of the sport. I think
it's really cool.
It feels really good.
What steps do you think need to be taken to achieve greater gender equality in beach soccer, and how can federations and organizations support female athletes better?
Okay, so first one, for gender equality, and for, can you repeat the first one again?
Yes. Sorry. What steps do you think need to be taken to achieve greater gender equality in beach soccer?
I think in each federation, I think usually there's one person that is working under the beach soccer umbrella, and I think ideally because there needs to be a lot more work that needs to be done on the women's side, is having somebody that is focused on the women's side within each federation. If not within each federation, within the organization of beach soccer, and really connecting with each federation and asking questions that need to be asked and assisting them on building the women's side to be equal of the men's, and in asking different federations, learning information so that they can then share that information with other federations to help assist them to really build out their women's side.
I agree. And I think that we can also take little steps in every time there is a men's tournament, having a women's tournament attached to it. Let's say that that's always a thing.
I agree.
Why not?
I agree.
Like every time that there's a men's World Cup something, have something attached to it for the women's. I think that's something that's very black and white that can just, I know it's easier said than done, but why not?
Why it's there.
Not?
All the logistics are already there.
Yep.
What is it to add a few more days before or after the event to have a women's event attached to that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. So, second question is, how can federation organizations support female athletes better?
Better. Kind of touched on that already, but I think, again, working, each federation delegating someone who is wanting to back the women's side. Right now, there's usually, in many of the federations that I know, is that there's one person overseeing the men and the women, and really are just overseeing, and but really having somebody who's focused on the women's side and will give the attention of what it needs, and especially of what is necessary. It needs to be someone who's focused on the women's side globally for beach soccer.
I agree. I think also we really need to start getting sponsored. I think that female athletes in this sport, we have to get paid.
Yeah.
And I mean, and males.
Yeah.
I don't want to. I don't want to take that away. I know we're talking about female World Cup right now.
Yes.
But it's the sport in general that we're supporting.
Yes.
And I want the men's game to be seen. It is absolutely incredible. I've watched the men, and I'm like, it's unbelievable. And I have no like shame in that whatsoever.
No,
like,
there isn't. It's a beautiful sport to watch them.
Yes. They have something that's different. And like, do I want to be like and be able to do certain things? Absolutely. Yes. There's no shame in saying that. You know, like, I'm a proud ass woman. They're males, great. We can all love each other in like the same realm and like respect each other in these ways. And I think that the sport in general needs to be put out there. So female athletes in general in the world, like, I think that we can just get more support in general, but I think that we do need to, recognize that we are right now really getting a lot of recognition, instead of like talking about all the time, like, what we're not getting, we're going that way. Right. And the fact that we have a voice right now, and like that we're able to even talk about this and it be seen by people, is a step towards something we never thought it could be. So I think continuing to have the support right now that we're having, and then, I think I just want a little acceleration a little bit. I'm really want my federation, specifically the US, to kind of put a little bit more time. I know that there's a lot, and I'm in the Athletes Council of U.S. Soccer, and I know that there's a lot going on, and they really do fight. They are on the same page as everything, but at this point, we're tired of waiting, and I think it's like we're just pushing a little bit more, and I just want a chance. People, they sit out there sometimes, and like, I'm just thinking to myself, like, this guy I'm seeing, I'll keep passing him on the street, and he's a homeless guy, and he has like this sign that's just like, give me a chance, like, let me like fix your tires, just give me a chance. You know what I mean? And I'm not, you can relate in every type of way, but I'm just like, if one person gives that guy a chance, that $2 could turn into whatever he decides.
Agreed.
However he uses it. So if you give us a chance, and you give beach soccer a chance to be seen just one time, have a tournament in the U.S., and I'm speaking for my federation specifically, have it a tournament in the U.S., get it out there, since it's so big right now, women's sports. See what happens. See who loves it. See what kind of revenue you can make. And then you can see, but if you don't give it a chance, you can't just say, oh, hey, play beach soccer, youth soccer, blah, blah, blah. It's like, they don't even, like, the youth doesn't even know what they have to accomplish.
They don't know.
They go to a game. Like, we all of a sudden, let's say, and now I'm going to get into, like, again, sociological things here. I work for a club. We have a tournament here. you give, sure, there won't be a lot of money on, you can get money on tickets. People are just walking because they're going to see the craze. They're going to see the vibe. They're going to see it's football. Everyone's loving football right now, as they should in the US finally. But like, you have a bunch of club teams, free beach soccer national teams, come watch.
Yeah.
They bring their freaking club teams over. They watch the game and they're going to be like,
blown away.
What?
Yeah.
Blown away by the sport. I have so much respect for it. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I'm not even like fully to where I want to be, but I'm like, when I see people doing certain things, I'm like, damn.
Yeah.
What a beautiful freaking sport.
So, I will have to say, I love everything that you're saying, and coming from a much smaller nation, you know, Portugal, and our country's much, much smaller. And I think a lot of the times, coming from two nations, being born US, but also Portuguese, seeing the influence of the United States globally, I think it is very important of what the US does to, it's very, it's like a snowball effect. What the US does, then the world starts doing. And so I think there is a little bit, I don't want to say pressure, but there is a little bit of, you know, kind of this idea, you know, if the US starts building these things, other countries start doing the same. It's like, it does happen that way. And I think with beach soccer, having the US doing something with it, hosting a tournament, I don't know of one massive global, you know, beach tournament held in the US has not happened for beach soccer. Not in, I don't know, like maybe it has in the past, but having a massive global event like one that's held in little Portugal, in a little town,
or El Salvador,
like
it has to be
able to be held in the United States at that capacity, to build a stadium.
That's the next step.
That is the next step. And I think, you know, again, coming from a smaller country where it is hosted, many events are hosted in Portugal, but having it in the United States, I think will do a lot of the things that we have mentioned, you know, provide investors, sponsorship for players, et cetera, by having an event here. And, you know, I'm glad the work that you are putting in, you know, because it does take work and investing of your time to talk with people, but continuing to put the word there and continuing to keep lighting this inspiration for them to keep that on their radar as something that they need to do. It's necessary to do.
Yeah, it's very necessary.
It's really important, and you're doing that within your own federation, I think.
And I have to give
hopefully ignites other players as well, and I think that's why with the network that you've created, all of us to be speaking within each other, is ways that other players can inspire their federations to do the same.
100%. And now that we're coming around circle, first of all, I want to give a shout out to Janae Sensory Warp. She's been a huge voice with me in the Athletes Council of pushing these things and having conversations with the people we need to have conversations with.
Fantastic.
She's fantastic.
Yeah.
She is a leader on the national team as well. Together we are, and it's, you know, she's been a huge voice as well. So I just have to say it, like, that cannot be unsaid.
Absolutely.
But I do think, like, we've come to that conclusion that the U.S. needs to host a tournament.
Let's go, U.S. How important is community support for you and your team?
The biggest thing ever. If we're talking club team, our community support is everything.
Yeah.
We are a self-funded team. And that is, again, I have to reiterate, investing in the sport, which is going to be big someday. And it's our little, what Kiera, my teammate, would say, sand dollars that we make as like coaches and things. Because a lot of us are coaches because we're able to play still, and like still, you know, it is supported to play still, because obviously it's
part of what you do.
You know, like, our community supports everything. Like, if we're using all of our money to do these things, and so we need even more. I mean, we're paying for these plane tickets to Italy and El Salvador, and I'm just sitting there like, oh my gosh, I can't even save a dime right now because the next beach tournament is coming, but I don't want to miss those things because it's our passion, it's our joy, and we're building something. So our community and like our fans, like what you're asking is like, is big time. Like a lot of our fans are our little kids that we coach as well, and then we have people who have just seen our journey in general, that are so supportive. But I don't think people know like how much that we actually invest in this, our time, our relationships, our money, like our family.
There's a lot that goes undercover.
We need more though, like but the only way we're gonna get more is to be seen. So it's hard. I will continue to go back to the sponsorships things. Like I think I would really love for players to get sponsored and get paid, not just by teams but by like but we have to be seen by the world. So
and it's all full circle because it comes to the recognition, and the recognition by having a World Cup, then companies see that these players are going to a World Cup to be recognized, to then be an investable sponsored player. So I think all of it comes, full circle when it comes to it. And but building our community is what I think I love about our club, is that we're always trying to build. It's using our platform to do more, like not only for us ourselves as players, but more for the youth generation, for global topics, the environment that we fully support. And, I think people who support us support what we're doing. Not only that we're focused on ourselves as a club and as players to continue to compete at the highest level, but also what we do outside of that, and really our invested time with youth players, with environmental issues that we continue to thrive on, because that is really what the world is about, is doing more than just what you're focused on, is what can you do bigger. And I think that we are all very much players invested in that as a club, which is awesome.
Do you think a women's beach soccer World Cup will inspire the next generation of female beach soccer players? And what advice would you give your young girls who aspire to play beach soccer?
Just hearing that inspires me. Also, coaching, a bit on the side as well. I love seeing the younger players play. In the end of the day, what we do is a sport, and a sport is fun. Period. Why would we be here talking if we don't have fun? The sport is fun. And seeing the generation, the younger ones, the youth players having fun in the sand and loving it, it brings you back to why you play. It's fun. It's so much fun. And the idea of these young female players having a World Cup that they can watch their coaches, watch other female players playing at that level, is inspirational, not only for the players playing in the World Cup, but the players that are looking up to those players playing in the World Cup. And I think that in itself is something that is so beautiful about the game, and is endless. It will keep going for forever, is having these youth players looking up to that and saying, I want to go there. And those players looking at the youth players going, wow, they're having fun, and they're going to be there. And I think that we have, as players of the game, have also looked up to the grass players saying, wow, they're amazing and beautiful. And then we become that. And the cycle continues. And it's so beautiful. And to have the Women's World Cup for these youth players to look at that, and the players in that looking at the youth players, it's just a beautiful relationship of the game.
It really is. And I think, just having that level of play. Like everyone, when you're an athlete and young, like you aspire to play at those high levels. And seeing another group of talented, athletic footballers in a different aspect of the game is just inspiring as hell.
How beautiful would it be for a young player to have a poster of a beach soccer player in their room? I know I had grass players on my wall, like aspiring to them. And how beautiful would that be, of them having, hey, I want to be like this beach soccer player.
And I think that is going to happen. And I think it's another, it's beach soccer, and it's also another female athlete who is like working and pushing boundaries, like body boundaries. Like being, like playing a sport boundaries of being at the highest level. That is so impressive. That should be recognized.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's so cool that we have the allowance to now be able to do that and like be recognized in these sports and like what we put our bodies through and like the hard work and everything.
Yeah.
But you know, I think that us having a World Cup is going to now create another pathway for female footballers to play in different aspects, and maybe that's playing beach and grass.
Yeah.
You know, like I think that once we do have those things, there's going to be grass players who are playing at very high levels that want to come play at beach, which is awesome. It brings the level higher and higher and higher. Please come play with me. Like I would love that 100%. Like, so I think I would just, you know, tell any beach little baller who's like even playing in the sport, like whoever's a young athlete playing beach soccer, like you are already breaking a mold of like what a soccer player does. Yeah. Because no other soccer players, I can speak for the US at least, have really had these pathways like as coaches who play professional beach, because we've only had a women's national team for what 4 or 5 years now, to teach and to give the opportunity for them to play in the sand and develop a whole nother skill that they can bring on the grass as well. So to be able to play in all these different aspects of the game and like be grounded with no shoes and like play in different places, it's just something different. And I think like we talked about at the beginning of this conversation, like one of my biggest inspirations now is to carve that pathway for future generations to come and be able to have the opportunity to play at a level if they decided that one way wasn't the way for them. Like that's so cool to give a whole nother massive group population of women and men an opportunity to play at the highest level playing football at with different skill sets. You know? I love it. So I just that's kind of my thought on it.
Fully inspirational.
Amen.
Amen.
Euros are on right now.